This is the Midnight Ocean radio show and podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us here live every weeknight from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or on the web at www.themidnightocean.com. Got a show lined up for you tonight. Rob Skiba is going to be joining us. Hopefully, he's going to be joining us soon. I hope everything is okay with Rob. Unlike him, we've been reaching out to him all day today. Haven't got a reply. I'm a little concerned. So let's all think about all of our listeners out there. Please, it's more important than the show. Let's hope Rob is okay. And hopefully he will get on the show. And it was just a miscommunication. I do worry. I do worry about our guests. And it's unlike him. It's out of character for Rob not to reach out to us. So like I said, I hope everything is okay. And I pray that it was just miscommunication. So, but we'll trudge on. I've always said the good Lord doesn't close one door without opening up another. And we do have a great show lined up for you if Rob is here or not. Some of the things, let's talk about some house cleaning or keeping ideas, things that are going on. If you have not been out to the Midnight Ocean website, you should probably do that soon. And let me tell you why. We have added 2 new apps, one for the iPhone and one for the Android. So you can now get this show, all of its old content and all of its new content and live content streaming right to your cellular device of your choice. Now, I have an Android. I tested it. It works. One of the things, though, I will tell you that what I had to do is when the show started, you might have to drag the screen down or maybe start the application when a live show comes in. And like I said, when you go to and I'll just show you how it works. Here's my phone. So what I did is that I just dragged it down like that. And then what it does is it does a refresh. And then there you go. You can see tonight's show live. So that is a new feature. Android, I don't know. I don't have an Android phone. We don't. Now I switched from Android to iPhone last year because I'd never had an iPhone. So I thought it was cool. I've always been an Android kind of guy. So that's right. Swallow the pill. You know what did it for me was the fact that Apple refused just because, they are the lapdog of the NSA, but publicly they refused publicly. Now, who knows what happened in the background, right? It's kind of like these dictators. We go into these dictators and we say, all right, we allow you you can say whatever you want to say publicly, but this is what we want you to do. And I think that's probably what happened with iPhone. I don't think that they actually stood up to the federal government. Who knows though? Maybe they did. And that's now why they're facing a $5 billion tax bill. So it is what it is. Talk about the government and the internet. Our first topic I do want to discuss with you guys is something that's very important. And a lot of you don't understand how the internet works and how one decision by our government, by this administration, I don't say our government. I'm not going to blame Obama. I'm not going to blame it. It's our government, right? There's this organization called ICANN. Now, ICANN is an acronym for, what is it an acronym for? I have to look it up here. I should probably add my, I know it as DNS registration. So ICANN is Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, right? In the world, we call it DNS servers. So let me explain to you how this works or how the internet works. When you want to send me mail, Jeff Norton, you don't actually send, the mail doesn't actually go, the address doesn't, my address or what's known in my municipality is not Jeff Norton's plot, right? So if you go to most municipalities that you have a plot, your land is a plot. That's a number. So what the United States Postal Service does is they take those plots, those numbers, and they assign them an address. They know how many plots are in a subdivision or in an area, and they assign it an address. So you get an address. I'm not going to give you my address, but you get an address. So it might be 123 Street or Avenue at my town, zip code, whatever. Well, that's very similar to what they've done with the internet, except they don't have all the other verbiage. They just use numbers. So they have this thing called IPv4, and they've gone to IPv6 because the internet's so big, they needed more numbers. So the first standard was what they called IPv4. And so what it is it's 3 sets of numbers with a dot, and then 3 more sets of numbers with a dot, with 3 more sets of numbers with a dot, and then 3 more sets of numbers with a dot. So you can imagine all the different permutations with all the different permutations, and I'm just going to look it up right here for you. Will give you something like 4 billion. Oh, here you go. 4,294,000,000. No, it is 4 billion. It's 4 billion. 4,294,967,296 addresses. So the internet, it has grown quite a bit. And so now they've gone to a new standard called IPv6, which is supposed to address every computer known to man, every device. So publicly facing, what happens? So your house, like your servers, have this public address, this number, whatever it may be. And everyone has a different number. So when you type in themidnightocean.com, it goes to this thing that ICANN controls, these DNS servers. Those DNS servers then say, all right, where's Jeff where is themidnightocean.com? What's its IP address? And you'll get an IP address for it. Then that IP address is actually given to a carrier that's assigned. So all of your carriers are given blocks of IP addresses. And then from there, your carriers assign them to companies that do your hosting, your servers. And then your server has a unique. So that's how it kind of flows. That's how they know. Kind of like the mail. You drop your mail in the mailbox. It goes to the post office. From the central post office, it goes to your post office, to a central post office, from central post office to another central post office, to your local post office, to your mail carrier's bag, to your mailbox. Same thing. So think of ICANN as the postal service. They are the keepers of all things addresses. And the United States controlled that. We were in control of that. Because remember, the internet was created, it was part of a DARPA project. And it was originally created to communicate between universities. So the United States, that was a corporation. But because it was a corporation and they were the only ones that were in control of these addresses, they were considered a monopoly. So what happened was the United States government became the oversighting agency over them. And what that would do is it protects them from what they would call monopoly status, because governments can have monopolies. You can't. Businesses can't, but governments can. So all of your traffic, so they're the mail company for the internet. Well, this administration, this current government decided last year that it wasn't fair that America, that we who fundamentally created the internet, not Al Gore, it was a DARPA project. But it just wasn't fair that we were in control of these IP, these addresses. So basically, ICANN was released of its government status. Now, why is that significant? Well, two things. Number one, there's no regulatory agency over ICANN anymore. So think about it. If you were a Google or a YouTube and had enough money, theoretically, you could buy them. And then you can, if you're in control of where the mail goes, you can route the mail where you want it, right? Isn't that what Google does now? If you want to basically pay them money, if people put in certain terms, your webpage will come up first. Pay to play. There's a reason why they make $7 billion a year, whatever it is now. Besides their advertising. So theoretically, now that they're not, ICANN, they are a corporation. They could be bought. The problem is that you still have this issue called monopoly status. They could be sued as a monopoly. So this is where it gets pretty hairy, and this is where it gets scary. Now, having Google have it is scary, or having whoever. I'm not picking on Google. Whoever buys it, Microsoft, whoever, think about it. They can control what gets routed where. And if they don't like the content, or they don't like what you do, or they deem your website hate speech or what, and I know, Google at one time said, do no evil. That was their goal, right? It has been documented, well documented. I'm not making this up. Put it in the Googler. Put it in the Googler. Or actually, better yet, go to Yahoo. Because Google has been known to also hide negative content about themselves. But they have no problem putting everybody else's dirty laundry out there. But it's been well documented that these organizations, these companies have agenda bents. In other words, they suppress some stories and allow other stories to go through. It's all about media manipulation, thus social engineering. So the thing is, the very concerning part here for all of us should be, where is this ICANN gonna land? Now, we don't know. One of the theories is that it's going to fall under the guise of the United Nations. Right? The United Nations is the same organization that just came out with a report that said that America now needs to pay reparations to the black community, the African American community, for slave trade. The United Nations is the same organization that is now investigating our election process and saying that it is unfair. See where I'm going with this? The United Nations is also calling for the banning of any manufacturing of firearms for civilian use. There are a lot of things that the United Nations believes in, but yet, isn't it the governments that start war and kill people? Isn't it governments that do that? I mean, I know you can make the argument that people do that as well. And you're right. It's valid, but a lot more people have been killed by governments and regimes than by people. But they don't want us to have these weapons. So where I'm going with this is that, and the United Nations has no qualm whatsoever shutting down businesses or they would do that. Here in the United States, the only thing that protects us is the laws of our country. We have laws that forbids them from doing that. But who is to say that once they get the ICANN, if there is a website that's counter to the New World Order, or maybe if you're a gun manufacturer, or if you are a gun dealer business, if you are a whatever business they deem anti-world order, who's to say that they cannot, they cannot shut your website down? Right? Who's to say, and the government's actually done this. The United States government has done this as well. There's been several cases where the government has actually hijacked people's Facebook pages and other websites. What I say by hijack is they'll go out and they'll actually mimic a website. It's called a honeypot. And then what they will do is they will route through a court order. They will route search engines to this fictitious website. Now, a lot of times they do it, especially when they're catching predators, online predators, pornographers, child pornography and stuff. So they do that and everybody goes, well, they deserve that, right? And look, I'm not saying, I'm just telling you what could happen. What happens is that you'll find that most legal things start out trying to help people. I get that. But what happens is it leapfrogs. You have someone that has an agenda now that says, all right, so now we want to get all of the, because they have deemed Loretta Lynch and her predecessor, John Ashcroft, has their predecessor to them all the way back to John Ashcroft, have deemed certain patriot groups as terrorist organizations in the United States. So what the government does is that one crime is the same as the other, as they would put it in their eyes, right? Justice is blind. What that means is justice doesn't matter if you're black or white. What that means is that they'll go after whatever crime they choose to go after when they choose to go after it. They don't put value on one crime over the other. They don't say, well, pedophilia is more horrific than tax evasion. That's sick, right? If they can get you, they'll get you. Regardless. So the thing is that, so they'll create these honeypots and they'll route traffic to them. And then they capture everybody that's going to these websites. And then now they're filling their database. It's very well documented. I'm not making this up. This is not, I want to say, this is not conspiracy theory. I don't want to use the word Alex Jones because even though as Alex Jones comes across as very extreme, if you actually do the legwork and look up his work, he's pretty dead on. He really, really is. So I don't want to give you a misnomer and say, well, Alex Jones. Yeah, no, it's uncanny at his ability to flush out the truth and to find and to get the documents. So they're out there. The government's not hiding anything. They're putting it out there. The problem is they're relying on us to watch our football games and our sitcoms and our whatever, and not do the exercise that we need to do. So what is scary and what should have you guys, and I know that I have right-leaning and I have left-leaning listeners. This should scare you as well, on the left as well as the right. Because who's to say that the administration today won't be, or is going to be the same administration tomorrow, or the same government? Let's take it to the other extreme. Say that you're for gay rights, or you're for LGBT, we'll say LGBT, and you have an ultra-conservative government elected. And it happens. It swings back and forth. Who's to say that they don't block that? Who's to say that your freedom of speech is offensive to them and thus they're going to block that? See, so it goes both ways. And I've always said this, and I please understand, we as America, black, white, gay, straight, African American, Latino, Chinese, whatever, we as Americans are the target. Now, they divide us. They keep us in division so that we're fighting with each other, but they also segregate us from each other so that we can't come together and fight these people. And I want to stress that this is not a war on the right. It is not a war on the left. It is not a war on the socialists. It's not a war on the communists, whatever your belief may be. It is a war on us as citizens of this country. I know for a fact that most Americans are not really concerned about LGBT issues. They're not concerned about gun thing. They want to get up, they want to go to work, and they want to provide for their families. And they want to do that in an environment that is safe and free from fear. They really do. It is this controlled media and this controlled government that is doing this. So, but, it all starts. I want to boil it back around. I want to get on a rant. That is not the goal of this show. What I want to do is let you know what is going on in the industry or what's going on. So in another week, actually today, tomorrow, the ICANN is now going to be open for purchase. And either a corporation's going to buy them or a government's going to buy them. And that should concern the heck out of everybody who uses the internet. Who's to say that this show right here is offensive? Because we do talk about New World Order. And we talk about God, and we talk about spirituality, and let's face it, that is offensive to some people. So who's to say that we're not on the chopping block? So please take the time, call your congressmen, your congresswomen, let them know that you don't appreciate this. Now, I will tell you, we do have a plan. Maybe we'll share that with you. We'll see. We'll let the shoe drop. But I will tell you, the geeks of the world have united on this one. And there is an alternative, a plan. But you're listening to the Midnight Ocean radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. Hey, Rob was supposed to join us tonight. Please, don't be upset. Send out Rob Skiba. Send out well wishes. Please, I hope his family, I hope everything's okay with Rob. But we'll be back. We do have a backup plan. Hang in there.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton. And you can listen to us every Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on the web. Still kicking, still breathing. Haven't been taken over or censorship yet. I wanted to explain. Before I got a little bit of criticism, got a little bit of flack there. Got some messages. Thought you weren't going to be political. That was not a political rant. Those that know me know I can get political. And no, this is, everybody needs to be concerned about this. This is an issue that affects everybody. It's not a right-left thing. It is our government that is doing this. Not a party, not an individual, not a president. This is the government that is doing this. Don't kid yourself. Don't kid yourself. Enough of that, though. Let's move on. Life is too short to sweat the small stuff. We will, like I said, the geeks unite. We do have a plan. It is a very good plan. I am privy to the plan. And I will tell you, what will happen is that you will have different networks. I'll just tell you. Don't worry. There will be different networks that will be created. You'll have a government network controlled by governments, controlled by corporations, just like the dark web. And you will have freedom networks that will be created through mesh networks. The technology is such in a way that we can actually set up mesh networks and you don't even you can do it wirelessly. So the technology is already there. But I do want to say, please send out well wishes to our guest who was scheduled tonight, Rob Skiba. It's not like him not to join us tonight, but obviously there was, I just hope and pray that it was a mix-up, a scheduling, or a confusion. But all of our listeners, please send out well wishes, messages of hope that everything is okay for Rob. Because it is unlike him for not to be at the show. And I haven't been able to reach him. I have his phone number and I've called and everything. So I hope everything. And like I said, the power of the people, let's come together and hope and pray and do what you do, what you feel comfortable with, to send good energy to Rob. And hopefully we'll get him back on the show. Look forward to it. But like I said, we always have a backup plan. And our guest, is, for those that listen or long-term listeners of the show, know who Joseph Reyna, Five Eagles, who's joining us is. Hey, Joseph, how are you, buddy?
Actually, I'm pretty good.
Good. It's funny. I'm going to say this, and please don't take this the wrong way. Someone said that you're becoming like my Linda Moulton Howe. You're becoming my on the ground reporter of all things paranormal. And I you know what? I kind of agree with them though. You send me so much pertinent, timely information. And it's just, it's uncanny what I get. I get a lot of people that send me stuff all the time, but I'll have to say everything you send me, it's like, I can pretty much, I put it on a Post-it note and I just check it off when it happens. last week, 2 weeks ago, you warned us of a meteorite shower, and that was undetected and was going to hit. And I think that's what we're going to talk about this segment, with what happened. For those that don't know, well, actually, I'll just turn it over to you, Joseph, and let you explain to the audience. They're tired of listening to me.
Well, it was the first time I had ever received a warning of anything of life-threatening, and it had to do with a meteorite that would strike Earth and earthquakes as well. And it gave a time frame, which was about that weekend onto almost 3 weeks. Well, right now, 2 more weeks. So we're not out of the woods yet. But just kind of kept it to myself. I did share it with you at the time, and I shared it with a couple of other individuals just so that somebody else would know and we could validate it.
And I want to stop you there. My big mouth shared it with a few thousand people.
Yeah, well, I called you that day just to give you another, I guess, a heads up that someone else had been warned. This guy had information that NASA had been launching rockets at this thing, trying to break it up. First, get the trajectory right with the radio type of satellite, and then second, trying to blow it out of the sky. It's supposed to be at least a mile wide. And they said they broke it up into several pieces, but they were pretty sure it was going to hit. And I just thought that was really interesting. Some other individuals like BP Earthwatch, they did all the groundwork and verified NASA did indeed fire rockets June, July, and August into September. And then you got that post on your Facebook just mentioning meteorites in the sky that weekend.
Yeah.
And Australia did get hit. Now, I thought we might not get hit. James Gilliland, I'm still trying to contact him for you. James Gilliland, he's been aboard these craft. Okay, I'm pretty sure I have been aboard the craft. I have interesting implants, but he remembers this. He was standing there. He's talking to him. He's been aboard their craft. They've landed on his property out at East City in Washington State. And he said that a meteor like that, a comet, an asteroid, would not hit the Earth unless it was allowed. I'm like, yes, thank you. I'm allowing it. I'm saying, yes, please hit us. Wake some people up. And he was trying to help they'd move everything out of the way. But we did get hit with a pretty good sized one. The bigger ones were deflected. There were 4 others that would have hit us. One of them I heard, and I have not been able to find the reports on this one. I'm sure if I go to the Meteor Society, I'd probably look it up, but I've been so busy. One went through the atmosphere over Canada. One went through the atmosphere over the U.S. And I've seen one fly through the atmosphere before and left this beautiful glowing blue trail, like cesium-13. And so it was a near miss. And ever since that strike, we've had like 212 earthquakes of decent size around the Ring of Fire. So there was something to that. It was supposed to be worse, though. The warning we got, this particular being was concerned that the house we were living in was not sturdy enough, and cautioned that we should live in a much more well-designed building. And anyway, that was what I knew. Like I said, I've never been warned before. Some amazing things have happened in these meditations. A lot of stuff with reptilians, tremendous amount of things with reptilian faction, and things that first, like a year and a half ago, I didn't even believe these things could be real. Or, I mean, in the past, yes, but I wasn't sure if they were still here, and apparently they are.
Yeah, it was funny. I want to kind of circle back to 2 things. Number one, for those that are new to the show, when Joseph, I'll just call you Five Eagles. When Five Eagles was on the show, and is someone listening to the show in the background? Because I'm hearing myself through your headset.
No, I've got the phone near me. Let me put it away.
Oh, I got you.
Further away.
I got you. Okay. So what happened is about almost 3 weeks ago, I get an IM, an instant message on my Facebook from my Facebook account, and it was sent from unknown. Now, let me explain. Facebook, there is no unknown user. So it had to have been someone that was either in Facebook or it had to be someone from Facebook. It had to be someone. But like I said, there is no unknown user in Facebook. And this individual sent me and it said, look up at the sky. And I, like an idiot, I'm learning to keep these things. But like a fool, I'm like, what the heck is this? Who is texting me that? And I get a lot of crazy things, but it didn't click. I didn't put two and two together. I just deleted it. I ignored it. You can actually accept it. And then of course you can communicate with that person or you can ignore it. So I just ignored it. So it went away and I can't retrieve it. But it was a warning about look up in the sky. And so then, of course, the way that, we were talking is that we had another guest. It's strange that we're guests. Whenever we have a guest that doesn't show up, you and I talk to each other. But we had another, and you and I were talking, and you were like, look, I got to tell you this about the meteorite. And that was bizarre because, like I said, just before that, I got the message to look up at the sky that there's a meteorite. So and it all just clicked together. Now, a lot of people are like, yeah, whatever. But I want to tell people, look, yesterday, and we'll talk about that. But I do want to also address your thing about reptilians. We had on the show Laura McDonald. Now, Lori McDonald is a very well-known regression hypnotherapist. She was on the show last Friday, and she was talking about her experiences with doing regression on UFO. It was wild because I asked her on that show when she talks with possessed people versus alien abducted persons or actual alien entities. She said that the possession people are a cakewalk. It's no big deal. But she said when she starts dealing with alien abduction people, she goes, then it gets scary for her. And then she talked about reptilians. And that it's like the Bible. You can't believe part of it and not believe all of it. And for me, the idea, the concept, I'm like you. The idea and the concept of the reptilians was something that was far in the netherworlds of my mind. But now I am really concerned. And by the way, they eat humans. And there are a lot of humans that disappear off of the face of this earth every day that they never find. And I'm looking for, there's a gentleman who has written, it's called 411, the case that he's a well-known journalist. And I'm trying to get him on the show where he's talking about there's several 10 to 20 people a year that disappear from our national parks that are never found, ever. And so that is concerning. That, when you said reptilians, that clicked for me, especially because I remember what Lori said about her research and her doing hypnotherapy for MUFON and regression and alien regression. So, but, you predicted that there was going to be meteorites and everything. And what just happened, for those that don't know, and I was watching mainstream media and they didn't talk about it. Not at all.
Well, I predicted an actual strike, something, that would wipe out it would have wiped out the city of San Antonio if that thing would have hit.
Oh,
it was that powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, over Queensland, Australia, they had a meteorite that flew right over. They said all of Australia saw it. It lit it up. And then it splashed into the ocean in the Pacific. And they said that the impact it registered 3.7 on the Richter scale. That was just the impact so if you can imagine if that would have hit hard land, what that would have done.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've been in California, and a 3.7, I hardly felt those when I was first there. But remember when Richter died, they took one of the scales, they moved it down one.
Yes.
And then around 2012, because we were having so many 6-pointers and 7-pointers, they took it down another 1,000 times.
Yes.
So a 3.8 would be a 5.8 on the original Richter scale.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was in Mexico City where they had a 3. It was like 3. I'm a heavy sleeper, and it woke me up. I mean, when it was wild. I mean, I remember visiting friends in California in the pool, and they had an earthquake, and you can feel the water moving around, right? As a kid, and you're like, oh, that's cool. But I was in Mexico City when it was like 3.5. And it was enough. It shook the bed enough that it definitely woke me up. And I was like, what the heck was that? And then it dawned on me. And then when I got in the office that day, they were like, hey, did you feel that earthquake? And so, yeah, at 3.7 is pretty significant. I mean, it moves buildings. And you got to understand, that was just it impacting the water. So that tells you how much force it had. If it would have hit dry land, I think you're absolutely right. It would have devastated a city. Yeah.
And I asked, why didn't they hit the U.S.? The question came back, because of martial law. They're just looking for any excuse. Okay.
So
they hit a remote area.
So that was, I got you. Because you actually, so you're of the opinion that a lot of these things are still under some kind of control from above.
Well, they're moving them out of the way. They've been doing that. You recall back, I think it was 2013, they were showing sections of the nation how it was being divided by FEMA, and over in D.C., they were ordering all those extra lunches for the kids in school and all those extra vehicles and all the training with weapons and equipment, and they were expecting a cosmic, impact, but they moved it out of the way, so we didn't get a cosmic impact, and they couldn't cry about it because UFOs don't exist. Couldn't cry foul.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is the thing. He who holds the information holds the control, and I'm a firm believer. We have a spaceship now that's up there orbiting. It's a miniature. It's like a drone-like, and they still haven't told you what that thing's all about, what it's used for. I've heard some that say that it is an asteroid hunter. That's what it does, and I've heard others that it's a spy plane. I don't think it's a spy because based upon its size, it can't carry a payload unless, of course, we have leaps and bounds in our technology, because it just doesn't seem like it can hold a payload enough to spy on anything. I mean, when you get next to a spy satellite, they're massive. The last spy. Well, a good example, the last spy satellite that we shot up here off the base, it was on a Delta V rocket, and which, for those that don't know, a Delta V rocket is the heaviest, most powerful rocket in our arsenal. And so this little space plane that they're shooting up, I think they shoot it on a Delta V, which is a twin rocket, or not a Delta V, a twin, which tells you that its size, its payload is not that big.
Did you ever see that commercial that came out around Christmas from Pepsi about the Black Knight satellite?
No, what's that?
I had to actually look it up on YouTube. The Black Knight satellite? You've never heard of it?
The Black Knight satellite? No.
Yes. Right about the time, when the Sputnik went up, they started listening for messages coming in from Sputnik. But back when Tesla was around, he had already detected the messages coming in from this particular satellite. It had a polar orbit, north and south. And what they started noticing was the messages being sent out by television and radio waves were being sent back and delayed, as in a code. And when they finally figured out what was doing it, they called it the Black Knight. It It's a strange looking. It looks more like an aircraft.
I'm actually. I just put it up there on for those that are watching on YouTube. I have an image of it up there on YouTube right now.
78 feet long, I think, 20-something feet across, and it's 13,000 years old, they estimate.
That is, I am looking at that.
So Pepsi did a really good commercial. They gave a lot of information out. The commercial is almost 4 or 5 minutes long. Not many people saw it, but it is on YouTube.
So no,
put Pepsi and Black Knight.
So Pepsi, like Pepsi, as in the soda company.
The soda, yeah, for people to try and make contact with it from around the world. By some people drive all these vehicles into the shape of peace sign, things like that, to try and make contact with it or communicate with it. And anyway, it's an interesting. A little commercial, but this device would have been left behind, but by what we've been talking about, called the Anunnaki, sort of like keep tabs on them, and when we first start transmitting signals out, they'll know we're doing it.
Yeah,
and there's no debate about it being at least 13,000 years old.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at it. See, these are the things that no one knows about, right? And I'm glad that they're listening to the show and they're learning, because I know a lot of our audience, our listeners are new, especially to the paranormal. And you can't, without a doubt, I mean, I'm looking at this image and it is not fake. It is sitting there in space and it is definitely orbiting the Earth. Let me see if I can get another picture. This comes from STS. There's an image from STS 088-72466. This is great. Oh, there's even a better image of it right there. For those that are watching the show on YouTube, I have it up there, and you can see it in a close-up view. That is not I want to say terrestrial craft. That is not something of our origin. Wow. That is incredible.
Getting back to the reptilians, you mentioned the Bible. The research I was doing for the book I wrote, I quickly realized there was a time when the reptilians won, and in the Hindu writing, the Bhagavad Gita, not sure I'm pronouncing that right, they mentioned that it was the demons attacked. They invaded the solar system, and they won for a time, but then the good gods came back and defeated them with a new type of beam weapon. And these demon gods were very cruel. Well, in the Bible, you've got this sadistic type of creator who demands they go into Canaan and just slaughter everyone. I mean, the dogs, the chickens, everything, and leave no one alive. And that's exactly what the reptilians would do. And the Bible doesn't distinguish. The ancient Hebrew scripture does not distinguish between the good Elohim and the bad Elohim. It just refers to them as the Lord Elohim. And Elohim, some people say, they don't even know what it means. They know exactly what it means. Those who left their lofty abode from the heavens and came down to earth. And by heavens, I don't mean where the angels are playing with their harp. More like outer space is the exact translation of that. In the book of Numbers, there's a section there where they raid a city and they take 32,000 virgins. And they were allowed to take the virgins because they hadn't been defiled by men yet, and they could be taught the Hebrew, and then they could be sort of consecrated into Israelite, and they'd be able to breed more Israelites for their army. And 32,000 virgins, that is a substantial city. Anyway, they were so happy, they sacrificed 32 of them to God, the Elohim, the Lord of the Elohim. That is human sacrifice to the God of the Bible. That's not the God I'm familiar with. Those were the reptilians.
Yeah. No, I clearly, I mean, this is a classic. One of the things that I am,
Are you there?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm actually, there's a video. I want to get up there and show, there was a case where, and it's very well known. Actually, well, shoot, a break is coming up. I do want to show this image real quick. This is actually an image of one of the president's Secret Service men. This is a well-known image, and this is also on there on YouTube. And this is a gentleman who they caught from the side. This is a Secret Service agent, and some will say that he is a reptilian. And what happened was he was caught at an angle in which he couldn't shapeshift and everything. But Joseph, we'll take a quick break. We'll get back. We're going to talk. We have more topics to talk about throughout the night with our guest, Joseph Reyna.
This
5 Eagles.
is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and Podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us here every weeknight from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or on the web at www.themidnightocean.com. If you are new, and I do see a lot of new people joining us there in YouTube, please hit that ever so important subscribe button. That helps us out tremendously. And yes, Scott, this is Jeff Norton. It's in the chat room. The only chat room that I monitor during the show is the one on YouTube. That is it. No other chat room. We are looking at possibly merging them together. I can't keep up with all the chat rooms. We have a chat in Spreaker. We have chat in Facebook. We have chat in YouTube. We have chat everywhere. So the only one that I actually monitor is the one in YouTube. And I just want to say, hey, welcome Christy, Moderator 1, Scott, of course, the Underground Resistance Network, Sherry, I think Becky, thank you for joining. For those that are in chat who are chatting away as we kind of have an eclectic night. And please, as our numbers grow throughout the evening, our very special guest that was supposed to be on the show, Rob Skiba, for whatever reason didn't make it. And please send out good energy. Hope that he and his family are okay. It's not like Rob to miss a show. So I hope it was more of in lines of lack of communication than anything else. A little concerned though. Couldn't get in touch with him on cell phones, but please send out that positive energy for him and his family and hopefully everything. And he'll get back, and we'll get him back on the show soon enough, because I know a lot of you guys were looking forward to that. But as always, though, we have our very good friend, Joseph Reyna, 5 Eagles, joining us and on the line. And we were talking about the meteorite. So you're 1 for 1. You gave us the warning. Of course, it didn't hit a populated area. Thank God. But it did hit. I mean, and it was pretty significant. 3.7 on the Richter scale in the water. And if that would have hit land, that would have devastated. That definitely would have devastated and killed a lot of life. So I am very grateful of that. One of the things I want to switch up the topics, if it's okay with you, 5 Eagles, is you sent me, and this is an actual topic that's near and dear to my heart because it affects me and where I live. But you sent me an article the other day talking about the flesh-eating bacteria that they're finding in the oil spills, or over here, the increase of flesh-eating bacteria. And, you want to kind of explain that a little bit more, and then I'll add to it?
Well, from what I was reading about it, it was genetically designed by a company actually financed by BP, and they call it Cynthia. It was supposed to eat the oil. They released it in 2011. It did a great job, actually exceeded all expectations, and then it mutated and started eating anything organic, which is fish, birds. And right after that, those birds died, and all the fish started washing up on shore. And it's spreading into Europe now. They're concerned about it.
One of the things, so people don't understand, don't get it mixed up with Corex. Corex was the chemical, the oil dispersant that they sprayed on the oil because oil will glob together, and that caused it to dissipate. Actually, what is going on, and I know this because I talked to shrimpers and I talked to people that fishermen. And they said that there's a dead zone in the Gulf about the size of the state of New York. And what it is it's this mass of oil So bear with me. So what happens is this oil gets dispersed, and so then it sinks to the bottom of the Gulf or the water. Well, as you go further down, it's colder. So because it's colder, the oil is then going to rejoin or it's going to coalesce back together. And because now you have all this water weight on top of it, it kind of keeps it at the bottom of the Gulf. So you don't see it. But it's still there. Like I said, they have infrared satellite imagery where they're able to see, because this obviously attracts heat, and because it's this big black mass that sits under the Gulf, under the water. And they said it's about the size, it's roughly 5 to 6 inches thick, and it would cover the size of New York State. And it's just lurking there. And what it does is, like a big blob, it moves. Now the concern is eventually, through currents and everything, that is going to come up to the surface, not actually to the surface, but that's going to start inundating back into the shoreline. And that's the immediate concern. And then the shrimping industry has been just wiped out, because the shrimp, people don't know this, but shrimp live in the bottom. They're in the grass and everything. And what happens is these shrimping guys that go out, and I see them every day, they have these big rakes, and they basically rake the shrimp up from the mud. They dig them out of the mud, kind of thing. So naturally, when you have 3 to 5 inches of oil on top of them, eventually, it's coming. We've seen the devastation of the BP oil spill, but we have not seen the true devastation yet. It's still on its way. And they're saying that in about 10 to 20 years is when it will start moving towards habited areas. And I will tell you, to this day, you can't take a boat out to the BP rig. They will stop you. There's Coast Guard there. They have a security force, like G4 or whoever it is. You can't get within, I would say, about 2 miles of the rig on a boat. They don't let anybody. So, it's the things that we're doing. And this is not a night to scare people, but this is a night that we're trying to wake you up. We're trying to show you that the things that are going on that you don't hear about on mainstream media, but are going on. And now you talk about, and I did some research prior to you coming on the show, and I found out too that they're finding very high levels of flesh-eating bacteria. And you're saying that what it was a synthetic that mutated, but in these tar balls that they're finding. And I will tell you, they tell you in here that if you see a tar ball, don't touch it. But they're not telling you why. But I'm reading, here's a study from the CDC. Records kept by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention show that the number of cases of virosity nearly doubled between 2008 and 2012, rising from 588 to 1,111. Virosity includes viral vicifucius. I can't pronounce that one. A bacteria commonly dubbed flesh-eating. It is rare, but tends to be underreported, the CDC says in its website. And what they're doing is they're finding this bacteria in the tar balls at record levels. So,
well, it was designed to eat the oil. So
yeah.
It mutated. It was with the oil.
Yeah.
Also, another thing the oil spill did was it sort of stalled the jet stream, because the Gulf current in tests that they've done in universities where they have cold seawater, and then they push the warm seawater through it, they put a dye in it, it would just move right through it. It would channel right through it. The only thing that would affect that and break that thermal saline barrier was to add water, fresh water to it, break up the salt content, or add oil to the mixture. And in the summer of 2010, I believe, the jet stream sort of stalled. It goes, I mean, not the jet stream, but the Gulf Stream. It goes up the coast, and then it just kind of meanders. It doesn't go all the way over to Europe, and that's the winters got really bad in 2010, and ever since then over in Europe. And the jet stream had been fairly constant. It was doing the same thing going all the way across, and now it went all the way down to Mexico. It's getting a wave, like a sine wave to it, and when it becomes strong enough, the frequency is fast enough, it just seems to break away and become these little hurricanes that move across land. Those winter storms we were getting, they started naming them, ran out of letters, stopped naming them.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Well, and I'll add to that, a lot of your local fishermen, because our area here is mainly fishing, they will tell you, a lot of your tournament fish, the guides will tell you that the Gulf Stream has stalled because they're not getting the tarpon. So typically what would happen is the tarpon and the migrating fish would come north up through the Gulf during the summer, and then they would return. They would migrate down, and they're finding that they're not coming up. Actually, they have put a ban on redfish, which is a very famous fish in this area for fishing in the flats, and you can only harvest one this year, where before you can harvest. Well, sometimes you can do two. I think the last time they did not a ban, but a limit was 2 was the most you could harvest. And now they're saying 1 because the fish aren't migrating like they normally do. And all of your fishermen, the guys that know, that have lived here all their lives, are saying the same thing, that the actual Gulf Stream is stalled. And that makes sense. I mean, you put that much oil, you do change the density of the water, and you have this. I would think of it as kind of like they put this massive block right in the middle. I mean, go Google, bring up the state of New York on your map, and you got that solid mass sitting at the bottom. It's got to affect something. I don't want to forget about the fish, the animals, the sea creatures down there. But when you put something that large in the middle of my, represent, I'm thinking how I can demonstrate this in people's visually in their mind. I mean, take a pool, and then how the jets rotate the water around the pool, and then take a lawn chair. Here you go. Then take a lawn chair and sink it into the pool, and it's going to definitely change how that water circulates around that pool. And that's exactly what this oil is doing to the Gulf. And it's crazy. And then you add on top of that, Joe, what you were talking about, the fact that there's and here's a report, an 83-year-old man living in Terrebonne Parish, Louisiana, has died from contacting a flesh-eating virus from swimming in the Louisiana Gulf waters. Yeah, we hear about that all the time here. We've heard of people losing legs. They tell you flat out, don't swim in the Gulf. I would never swim in the Gulf anyways because of the bull sharks and some of the other animals that are in it. But the reality is that they're, up in Destin, some of the famous areas, there are people that are contracting flesh-eating viruses, and it literally is, they're having to cut legs off, having to cut arms off. It's crazy. It's insane. And yeah, right now in Louisiana, they're monitoring Creekmore Point, Fontainebleau, Grand Island, Fort Con, Holly Beach, Rutherford, Martin, Long Beach, Little Florida, and in Gulf Breeze for this virus, for this flesh-eating virus. And they have told us that if you see a tar ball, and a tar ball is basically a glob of oil, they say don't touch it. That they're telling people all over the place here, do not touch them. And now I know, it's amazing. Why don't they just come out and say it? Why don't they just tell you not to mess with it? Why don't they just come out and say, look, it has flesh-eating viruses in it? I mean,
I've gone to the coast for the last 4 years, and we used to go fishing, and we stayed away from the coast this year. That there were 3 cases that I know of where the flesh-eating virus and some limbs were lost here, and I didn't think it was worth it to get in the water.
Yeah.
Also, it's threatening the European coast over there. Their beaches, they're very popular, and people aren't going to be able to go in their beaches either.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, we had an algae plume here in Florida. So we have the Okeechobee, which is a huge lake in the middle of Florida. I mean, Florida is pretty, you got the ocean, obviously. We're kind of we're a peninsula, right? But Florida has a lot of lakes, a lot of inland. Well, these are spring-fed lakes. They're incredible aquifers. And now we have this issue of these algae blooms where because of they're saying it's all of the runoff from the farmlands and everything are feeding these algae, and it's literally destroying our lakes here. It's just it's unbelievable. It's just crazy. I mean, we had a massive fish kill last month. Massive fish kill because of the red algae. And it literally, in Okeechobee, that lake will range from a height of 12 feet to 3 feet in depth. And they said it was algae from the top to the bottom. And I mean, we're terraforming. I mean, we're literally terraforming, which kind of makes you also wonder, what are we terraforming for? And that goes back to your comment. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just throwing that out there so people can think about it. But what are we actually terraforming for? What creature are we terraforming this earth for? And
well, when you read Agenda 21, the UN is pushing Agenda 21.
Correct.
And there's a section of Agenda 21 where they want to get the humans off the land and preserve it for non-humans. And we need to be put in green camps next to the factories we're going to be working in. So it's pretty much like you see in these bad movies of the future. I wanted to ask, though, have you ever heard of something called black goo?
Black goo? No. Educate me.
I've heard reports they were trying to mine it, that's why they were digging there in the Gulf. Black goo is it's actually an ancient AI nanite technology that they find on Earth. It's usually in oil, but it runs along the ley lines, the Earth's ley lines. And the last report I heard, because I've been trying to pick up as much as I can from it, this individual said they came across it when they were in the Falkland Islands. The stuff was on the surface. And when they started testing it right away, they realized this is not normal. It moves. And if you put it in a jar and set it somewhere, it'll be by itself. It'll remain alone. But if you set two jars full of this black goo, they'll start moving the jar to get toward each other. And they can communicate to each other with radio signals. And what they do is they can enter any organic host and modify it at the molecular level, and then sort of optimize it for whatever it needs it optimized for. So they figured super soldiers. Apparently they took it to Europe. Well, I'm sure it's here in the U.S. as well. But when they infected these individuals with it, it makes you smarter, incredibly smarter. You pick up other languages very fast. The thing is that it calms you down, makes you less aggressive. And so it wasn't very good for super soldiers. So they eventually just poured it down the drain. Well, there's all kinds of living things down there, and it's become airborne. And now people in Europe are, this one guy, he said he lived near an area where it kind of smelled like sewer. And after a short time there, he started wanting to read more. And next thing you know, he picks up some books and learns Portuguese, and he can speak it fluently. And then he started trying to figure out what is happening to me. and it's this stuff called black goo. It's an ancient form of AI, and from what I've researched, this stuff has been here for possibly millions of years on the planet from an ancient war that was left behind from a civilization that's no longer here.
Yeah, I actually, it's funny that you say that, because on the YouTube, I actually brought up the, remember the movie Lucy? Mm-hmm. Where she supposedly took this drug that made her super highly intelligent, and at the end she turns into black goo.
Yeah, I hadn't put those two together, but that's exactly what it does.
Well, that's what I have. Well, it is kind of, now I understand, because when I watch Lucy, I'm like, why is she turning into this black goo? as you so eloquently said. Why is she doing it? Now I understand, because this is actually, the movie Lucy is based upon the theory of a black goo. That is incredible. That is, I never in all of, and there's a reason why, Joseph, why you come on the show, because you bring us so many unique information. See, here I'm looking at one where they're saying the black goo. That is incredible. For those that are joining us on YouTube, you guys can actually see me as I'm going through. I recommend you guys go out there. Just don't take our word for it. Go out there and Google this stuff yourself. I'm going to go find me some black goo. How do you? And it does make sense. So if they're along the ley lines, we know. All right. So scientifically, let me put my science hat on here for a little bit. So scientifically, we know the ley lines are magnetic lines. We know that. And so it only makes sense that these fractures, where the oil runs, that this goo could be extracted through these magnetic processes, the natural occurring magnetic processes in the earth. I'm going to have to get a geologist on here. And see, I'm going to go hunting for some black goo.
Let me give you what I've come up with so far on black goo. It kind of blew my mind. You remember me telling you about the shockwave that's coming to Earth from the center of the galaxy?
Correct.
This being, I believe, a sacred galaxy. And Brooks Agnew hopefully is looking into that, because I shared this information with him, and he had never considered that before. But what was I talking about? Okay, I got this wild idea in just communicating with what I believe are off-worlders. And I said, look, you're so fascinated with human beings. We live in a really crappy society, but if we were in a utopian-type environment with your technology and without our oppressive leaders, it could be a really fantastic world, and children could be brought up, with learning all their gifts and abilities, and you'd have an unbelievable civilization. So I'm saying, okay, the Earth's pretty much had it, and the shockwave will be here probably in the next few years. Mm-hmm. So why don't we take some volunteers? Supposedly they have regeneration capabilities where they can regenerate you back to being young. And I said, most of these individuals are older. Regenerate them. Take volunteers. Go out away from the shockwave, 1,000 light years or so. Find another suitable solar system and colonize those worlds with humans. And all these new little bodies that get created, the souls that want to incarnate as human and experience the separation from Creator so that they can awaken and feel individual, which is sort of an awakening, you can do that. And I've never ever had them shocked and trying to explain to me there are no other solar systems like yours. I'm like, yeah, there's billions of them, right? And they said, no, there are no other solar systems and there are no other worlds like Earth. I said, okay, explain that one to me. And do you remember the planet that's just on this side of Jupiter, the one that's now an asteroid belt?
Yes.
Okay. the largest asteroids are all turning in the same direction. That means there was a planet there. They also have mud on them, soil, clay, meaning there were oceans on there.
There was something there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. So let's talk about that when we get back from our break here. Joe, can you stay on for another segment? Are
Yes.
you good? Okay.
No problem.
All right. So we are speaking with our guest, Joseph Reyna, 5 Eagles, as he's filling in for Rob Skiba. Like I said, if you're listening to this, Rob, I hope everything is okay, and we will be in touch. We'll take a quick break. We'll get back, and we'll continue the conversation.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and a podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us here live every weeknight from Monday through Friday. That would be a weeknight, I believe, from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. I'm listening to this music. This music is driving me. I'm waiting for like the heavy metal guitar to kick in. I know it's not, because I've hear this song all the time, and it's weird how we program ourselves for certain things. But I do every time I hear this song, I said this would be awesome if Axl Rose, or better yet, Jennifer Batten, who was a guest on the show, if she would just shred this song with her axe, as they would say. Talking about music business, we're going to have Ed Roman's going to be joining us tomorrow, which is going to be a great conversation. We're not going to talk that much about music. I'm sure we will have some conversation pertaining to the music industry, but most of it's going to be about his experience with the paranormal. So that's going to be an interesting conversation. I do want to address a couple of the comments in the chat room before, and I'll go ahead and we can go ahead and bring our very special guest, Joseph Ray. He can hear this and interact with this one as well. So Five Eagles, some of the people in the chat room, let's just kind of go back, because I do want to address this. They were wanting to know, do you think the black goo has anything to do with the black-eyed children? And for those that don't know, and we're going to have Jonathan Young's going to be joining us next month. I spoke with Jonathan. We did get him rescheduled from last month where we had a scheduling conflict once again. And he's going to be joining us. And one of the things we're going to be talking with him about is these black-eyed children. And for people that don't know, this is the creepiest thing I've ever seen or ever heard. I'm telling you, I'm willing to spend a night by myself in the most haunted places in the country. I without a doubt, I'm going to do it. But I will tell you, if a child comes up to me and has black eyes, I'm not messing around with it. And so for those that don't know, so suppose the origins of the legend were 1998 postings written by a Texas reporter, Brian Bethel. Now, Joseph, have you ever talked to Brian? I know you're a fellow Texan, and I know you kind of walk in those circles. Have you ever had the opportunity of talking or meeting with Brian? Oh, did we lose? Well, it looks like we lost Joseph. Well, hopefully he'll call back in. But let me kind of give you guys the history of this. I hope everything's okay with him. But so apparently there's these black-eyed children who, as he was sitting out, so Brian was sitting in his car one night. I don't know why he was sitting in his car, but he was sitting in his car waiting on someone. And he said that these children came up and knocked on his window, and they wanted to get in the car. They wanted to ride with him. Now, he thought this was pretty odd, pretty bizarre from the beginning. But it wasn't until he actually looked into their faces and he noticed something very, very unnatural. And it was their eyes. Their eyes were black. Solid black. Hence the name Black Eye Kids. Now, these children have since been reported throughout the country. Oh, there we go. Throughout the country. And it's just not Brian anymore that is seeing that. I don't know if this is what they would consider like a mass a mass hysteria kind of event or a mass sighting. It takes one, and then now everybody else is seeing it. But they are now seeing these black-eyed kids. And we're going to have, like I said, we're going to have Jonathan Young. He's an expert in folklore. But the secret is this. If you ever get a knock at your door at night, they always come in pairs. Very rarely are they singular. They will ask to come in. So on a rainy night, as you're sitting there at your house watching TV or reading a book, you'll hear a knock. You go to the door and you see these black-eyed, but they look like children. You see the children, the innocent children, standing in the rain. And they never force themselves into the house or into your car or anything. They always ask, may we come in? I will tell you, without a doubt, say no. You will find that they in all of the reports in which you tell them that, no, you cannot come in, they will turn around. They won't protest. They will turn around and they will walk away. So that is the folklore of the black-eyed children. Very scary stuff. Sometimes the scary stuff is the real stuff, right? The things as Joseph, I see you're back. So we were talking about black-eyed children because one of the people in the chat room, one of our listeners, wanted to know if we think that the black goo has something to do with the black-eyed children. And I was just answering. So to answer your question, I was giving history of the black-eyed children to our listeners who don't know the folklore or the story behind it. But do I think? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they absorbed it, or maybe they're higher ascension beings. Some would say they're demonic in nature. I don't know. All I know is I'm not letting you in my house. Not at all. If your eyes are black, I'm sorry. Great makeup job, but you're in the wrong, go to Hollywood. I'll give you the number to my buddy Manu and let you try out for one of his movies that he's working on. But I'm definitely not going to let you in the house. Now, something that is along the same lines, though, is this clown craze that's going on. Have you had any clown sightings in your neck of the woods yet?
Clown. Like Bozo?
Like Bozo the Clown, yeah. But these guys don't look like Bozo.
I have heard the black-eyed children.
Yeah.
I got disconnected from you.
Yeah.
And so I turned on the computer, and that's what I was hearing. I was hearing you talk about the black-eyed children.
Yeah.
No, they're supposed to be hybrids with other race that were created or whatever, and then at least that's what I've heard. But I have heard they don't turn away right away. They become pushy and insist on coming in.
Oh, do they? See, I heard it.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. And we'll get Jonathan because he's actually done a lot of the research on Open TV.
They usually look down, and then when they start becoming pushy, they look up. And that's when you see their eyes.
That's when you see their eyes. That's when you say, heck no. But the whole trick of it is you just don't let them in your house, period. Mm-hmm. You have to invite them. And the reason, people go, well, what happens? We don't know what happens because no one who has ever let them in their house has ever said, oh, nothing. We sit around, have a soda, have some popcorn. You never know.
From some of the reports I read, this one lady who did let them in, if they touch you at all, you become very ill, incredibly ill.
Wow. That's it. I don't see. We had kids when we first moved here, but I knew the kids. They made the mistake of showing up it was in the middle of June or July, and they were knocking on our door going trick or treat, and they were wearing clown masks. And I was thinking about that. Kids will be kids. I mean, we did crazy stuff like that, but in today's day and age, you can't be doing that kind of stuff. You get shot. And I told Sandy, I'm like, next time, because now, and let's talk about these clowns. These are not Ronald McDonald looking clowns. These are very, how do you say? These are very creepy. They almost look like, like the drunken, the drunken clowns that are, and they're showing up on people's video cameras, on their security cameras. They've been reported as, I want to get one that's actually on a security camera, so people will see. I don't know. This one is probably.
I actually have a clown story for you.
Yeah, go ahead. Share. As I bring this one up.
Grew up in a small town south of San Antonio, and I noticed that in small, remote, rural areas, hauntings happen a lot more often than in city areas. Mm-hmm. But my father told me this one. His stepfather would drink a lot, and he had a friend over who was drinking quite a bit, and he wanted to stay there on the porch. It was a nice, cool evening, and he was going to lay there on a couch that was there, and they warned him, look, there's something that comes out here making scuffling sounds. He goes, I ain't afraid. Okay, just something weird. We don't know what it is. Well, don't you look at it? No, we're not going to look. So anyway, he gets woken up, starts to get kind of cool. He doesn't know what time it is, probably earlier in the morning, because it's kind of like fog coming in. And he starts hearing the scuffling down this. And it's getting closer to him. It's a paved sidewalk, and it was moving closer to him from the sound. And finally turns around, because they didn't find him on the porch that morning. They had to track him down and find out what happened. He said that it was a clown dancing, and it had the big shoes like the clowns do, dressed just like a clown would in the moonlight, dancing, moving toward him, and it was the last thing he expected to see. This would have been back around the 1960s, somewhere in there. So, and that I did not expect to hear that. I've heard all kinds of weird noises, things that land on the roof and start scratching. All the pipes of the house underneath start banging together. I've dealt with a lot of poltergeist activity, and I've done some exorcisms as well. One time we were here in the house, and I had these snow boots on. I'd come from California, and over there in California, you can have snow boots, but over here in Texas, no one's ever seen them. And they kept my feet nice and warm in the wintertime. My brother arrived. We had a company, and he's sitting down, going over paperwork, drinking some coffee, and underneath us on the floor, there's something moving in a circle very fast, making a very loud racket, almost as if you'd taken a dresser drawer out, a big one, and it was banging it under the house, running around in circles, but there's not much room under there to run around in circles. And then it took off toward my mom's room, ran around in circles in there, and came back. And he just looks at me, that's a poltergeist? I go, yeah. And he's looking at my feet. Goes, that's not you making that noise? I couldn't make that noise with these snow boots if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And he goes, why don't you get rid of it? Well, our little brother Ruben, he didn't believe in this stuff, and I wanted him to hear it. He goes, well, go wake him up. And I tried to wake him up, and he could hear the noise. He would not get out of bed. All of a sudden, he was not curious anymore. So anyway, we ended up just removing it. He basically just commanded it to go, and it's gone. But there were times when it would scare the heck out of me, but kind of miss it sometimes, the noise. But when it starts happening, like the growling, I've had the growling thing take place where you're standing there and there's really loud, guttural, big, heavy dog sounds just right there, and there's no dog there.
Yeah.
And your hair in the back of your neck kind of stands up, and then check the house, everything's closed. My stepson walked in, and I said, have you heard a dog growl? His eyes got really big. You heard it too? He'd heard it outside, not inside. And if individuals that I've spoken with said if you take a picture of it real quick, you'll see like a shadow of some kind of a big dog with red eyes. I said, no, that's okay. I'll just tell it to go.
Yeah. Wow.
That is scary.
Yeah, and I know a lot of, like, well, we'll get back to this. Yeah, that would scare me. I mean, the big one for me is that every once in a while I hear my name get called, or someone will say my name. And it's weird because it's in a familiar voice enough, and it's not Sandy, and it's not my grandmother who's passed or anybody. It's in a familiar, comforting voice, but it's not anybody that I know, if that makes sense. But there's something about the voice or the sound of the voice that makes me react to it. That makes me react to it in such a way that it's like a family member, but it's not anybody that I know of. So yeah, I've had that happen on numerous occasions. That's the big one. Is the voice. I've never had the guttural growl. I've never had anything like that. Not at all. But I've had the voice where someone will call my name.
Well, I've had that as well. Yeah. And it was in a factory, and we had to wear hearing protection, so we had earmuffs on. And I would hear my name called, and not only myself, but several other individuals, if they were standing near me, they'd hear it called also. And they turn around, there was no one there. It was just, wide open factory.
Wow.
There's not anybody there.
Wow. See, those are the things that mess with me. So I just want to make sure that we get all of the questions in the chat room here. One of the things we did leave out, and yes, rightfully so in the group. So obviously, these clown sightings are pretty serious stuff. The FBI is investigating it. It's only a matter of time before a clown gets smoked. You are probably one of the dumbest people that are walking the earth if you're walking around in a clown outfit right now.
Well, the FBI has 4 zombie units, right?
I did not know that.
Yeah, and if they get bit, they're in quarantine for 90 days. And so far, it's not transmitted, but they do actually have 4 zombie units that need to respond when people are acting crazy, attacking other people, biting.
Well, we have that case here where the young man was on what they call Flicka, and he literally killed a husband and wife and ate them while he was on this drug. He finally woke up from his coma. He was taking it's a drug, it's a popular drug, synthetic drug called Flicka, and he apparently he killed this family. I believe he killed the wife. The husband's still alive, but he ate the face off of these people. And it's just,
in the year 1555, and this was mentioned by Shakespeare as well, there was a small meteor that struck a tavern in London. And shortly after that, these individuals were going around biting everyone. And because the theater was shaped like a Folgers coffee can with 2 openings, they were able to seal it and keep themselves protected from these people who were trying to get inside. And when they finally killed them, they said they could only kill them by chopping their heads off, the ones that were affected or infected. And the interesting part of the report mentioned that as they walked past the severed heads, the heads were trying to bite their ankles. So the heads didn't die just because you cut them off.
Wow.
And that you can find that in just Google it.
In history. Well,
history.
I know that there's they have found talking about zombies, I know that they found a bacteria that affects insects, that the insect is actually dead, but the bacteria controls the muscle movement. And, in our infinite wisdom, how do I say this?
Weaponize it.
Well, they don't want to weaponize it. What they're doing with it is that they're looking at for paraplegic. Now, I understand for science, but this is how this stuff gets out there. So what they're thinking is that they're going to use this bacteria and with paraplegics. So they're going to inject paraplegic. Well, they want to, and I'm sure they're going to study it, or they're going to do whatever they're going to do. But they're going to then synthesize it. But they want to take this bacteria and they want to inject it into paraplegics and see if it causes muscle movement.
Well, I don't think that's the flute. why don't they learn to play instruments the way the Tibetans do when they have a ceremony for someone who's died? They go to the house and they start playing their instruments, and then the body rises and basically hops all the way to the grave. No one touches it, and they've been doing this since forever.
What?
Yeah.
The Tibetans?
Mm-hmm.
Those crazy Tibetans. So
wait, back to the solar system. I wanted to get back to that. To get into what they told me, or what I was shown, really.
Yeah.
And it's one of those downloads where it takes you a while to get it all. Basically, during the invasion, this reptilian invasion of our system, there was a great galactic battle. And this battle is mentioned as the War of the Titans. In the Indian cultures, Lakota and all the others, they speak of this war taking place on several worlds, several planets when it happened. Anyway, if you can imagine Avatar-type world, where Mars is that world, and they've got a giant water world behind them. You can see it always in your sky. Okay, Mars is an inhabitable world. There was Venus. There were, I don't know that Pluto was one of them, but there were several other, 4 large moons, 4 relatively large moons. Mm-hmm. When this world was destroyed, and I saw an image of Earth next to Saturn, and it would look pretty much like kind of like a pea next to a basketball.
Yep.
So a chunk of Saturn that became Earth wouldn't have to be that big. And apparently of the entire explosion, this one little island had a lot of water with it and became Earth. A third of that world was pulled behind the brown dwarf star people are calling Planet X. In the Bible it says the great red dragon drew a third of the meteors with its tail. And another third fell to Earth. Well, the Earth got pummeled, and then the third remained in the asteroid belt. But so they're explaining, okay, this is what happened. The core of that world is iron core. That became Mercury. So it's Mercury covered with a little bit of red dust on the outside, and that moved to a closer orbit. Earth had an orbit of about 360 days. All the ancient calendars measure that at 360 days. And then Mars had its atmosphere ripped off of it. I'm sure Venus probably did as well. But Venus was dragged away with Nibiru, Planet X. And it wasn't reintroduced into our system until about 3,600 years ago, according to Velikovsky's research. It's not mentioned before then. And the Mayans said it entered as a comet and then took its position around the sun eventually, and that sort of pushed Earth out and gave us the additional 5 days that the Mayans said are out of position. Anyway, so they said that there are no other systems like this one, and then the Earth has a very large moon orbiting it, which is, we've discussed before, possibly artificial.
Sure.
Not an actual planet. So that there are no other systems like ours, and it's because of the system we're in and the world we're in that the actual unique human species developed. Also, the sun has a lot to do with it. Whatever sun humans are around, you're modified by the light from that sun, and it distinguishes your particular characteristics for whatever world you're on.
Sure.
But so it can't be duplicated. It's just a one-shot deal.
And
so anyway, that was my idea.
Well, no. I mean, it's perfect because for those that are watching on YouTube, actually, Forbes, I pulled up an article where Forbes they talked about this. Why is our solar system missing the universe's most common planet? So, I mean, there is science that supports that there was another planet that is no longer. And
according to Bode's law of harmonics, it should have been a Saturn-sized world.
That's exactly, if you read the Forbes article, that's exactly what they said. They talk about they said all of the other solar systems have these commonalities, and they said, we're missing. And that's, I'm not going to read the article for you. Go out there and read it yourself, which this is insane. This is wow. What's insane is it only happened almost 12,000 years ago. 12,000 years ago.
Well, yeah, that part's insane.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago. Not at all. But we are we've blown through this segment, And when we get back, Joseph, I mean, are you good to go? I don't want to keep you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I'm having fun.
All right. It's always a great show. But we'll be back. We'll talk about, we'll see what else we can get into. If you're in the chat room, if you're not in the YouTube chat room, get over there. Get into that chat room, because tonight is kind of an open line night. But yeah, we're not taking calls from our listeners, but you can type something in the chat room and we'll try to answer it for you as soon as possible.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That's right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. Tonight is a very special night. I don't know, you guys in chat room, what do you guys think about this? I kind of like this format of just kind of open topics. Maybe we need to fit that into the show a little bit more. Now, I will tell you that I am working with Telos. We did get our quote. I have to sell one of my children. I don't know which one, though, I want to sell. I don't know which one Sandy will let me sell. I'm not selling the grandkids, though. But one of the girls has got to go to pay for this. And the reason being is because one of the things that we are going to be doing when we upgrade our studio is that we will have 8 lines. We're going to have 4 phone lines and 4 Skype lines where people can call in. I think it's important as we grow our listenership, and as you guys can see, the larger child, they eat more. But the problem is with the larger child, Scott, is that they're already out of the house. So, and I love all my girls. I'm not selling them. I can sell any of my girls. Yeah. So, but that was the one I was thinking of selling. I'm a little upset with her right now. Not that she did. I get it. I miss my grandchildren. I really do. Great kids. They frustrate the heck out of you. But you know, that's the thing about grandkids. When you get tired of them, you can just hand them back to the parents. Say, here, deal with it. And I don't get that luxury because now they have moved to the great state of North Carolina. And I understand people got to do what they got to do. They got to pay bills and everything. So, you know, I just, like I said, I got to get out of myself and think about others a little bit more. So, but, yeah. So getting back to Telos, I would love to have a night where we just have open lines. That would be incredible instead of me trying to read the chat at the same time as you guys are chatting to me and we have a guest and stuff. So, you know, once we get the Telos system, the new studio built out and everything and get that in place, then we can actually do a call-in night where it's open topic. And it's still kind of open topic tonight as we welcome back our guest, Joseph Reyna, Five Eagles, joining us as we're kind of doing it. It's an eclectic show. We're hitting all of them and everything. And we're trying to answer your questions in the chat room as best as we can. But, and I do apologize if some of them do skip through. If I don't answer them, just type them in bigger next time. And hopefully I'll see them. And I'm missing my moderator, Jeff, the Sentinel. I don't know where the Sentinel is these days. He usually grabs those things and lets me know. But we're getting more and more listeners in our YouTube channel, so it's kind of hard to keep up. But as you know, prior to, I know, Joe, you've been busy, so I know you haven't been listening to the show that much. One of the things that I'm going to be doing here in the next month or so is I'm going to be traveling to Ohio, the great state of Ohio. And some of the guys and gals are arranging for me to stay in a haunted bar, a very well-known haunted bar in Ohio. And they're working on it. We're just getting all the particulars worked out. And then hopefully I get to stay in the haunted penitentiary in Ohio as well, where the Shawshank Redemption, or however you say that, Shawshank, that movie was filmed at. And that's also the Shawshank Redemption, yeah. And the thing is I'm going to stay all by myself. I'm going to do the show live from those 2 locations, different nights. Obviously, I can't do it the same night.
A couple of devices you might want to have with you. Mm-hmm. This one, you know, those EVPs. Yes. The electro voice phenomena.
Yep.
Okay. Just one adventure is pretty basic, really. As soon as the computer detected something came across the EVP, it would play it back. So you could actually ask them questions and you'd hear it answer over the EVP if something came through. Yeah. And there are groups here that do that, and I joined. Well, I went to visit, kind of sat in a few of their meetings, but I am busy, and I wasn't able to go with them. But they were showing some of the better ones, and they've got a camera. They're walking in to this house. It said, "Get the F out." And it came on, they picked it up on the camera, they picked it up on the tape recorder, and they heard it. And of course, they didn't get out, they walked in, which was not a good idea.
Yeah.
But it was very clear. And
Wow.
then there were other EVPs that were pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
That would help you, or if someone who's a medium in that area, you advertise for someone who would like to just get some publicity, mediums will pick up these energies and be able to communicate, and they'd be a great thing to have.
Yeah. The whole goal. All right. So let me tell you how we're going to do this. Is that I'm gonna wear a portable EEG, which is so it can measure my brainwave activity. I'm also going to wear a heart respirator monitor, all that stuff for safety reasons, just in case. And I'll have the standard. I'll have the digital recorder. I'm going to do the show live, the 4 hours as we're doing this. The goal is to lock me in the building by myself, no one else, just me. And I might even put motion detectors, because I do have portable alarms and motion detectors. So I might even put motion detectors throughout the facility where people can't tamper. So I will know if someone's
thermometers.
In there.
Thermometers, temperature drops.
I'll have thermometers laid out. Yep, digital, electrical, wired, and I'm going to do the show live, and then during the show we're going to stream it live over the internet. And, people will be like, hey, do this, do that, go sit in a cell, go lay down in that bunk. And I'm going to do it. I for the science. I'm going to be scared to death, but I'm going to do it. It's going to be fun. But then it was funny because in the email today, in my email, and I don't know what higher power or what higher force is doing this, they said that they were actually going to get in touch with the Stanley Hotel. Do you guys know who the Stanley Hotel is?
I haven't heard
on
of
my
it.
behalf. That's the hotel that The Shining was done in.
Oh, okay.
That is actually the hotel where The Shining was done, room 237, all of that. And they said that they actually do shut that hotel down in the winter. That is true. They do shut it down. Now they do have caretakers, that a group, and they asked if I would be interested in going there and staying at the hotel. And they said that they can arrange it if I'm interested.
Did you ever see the movie 1408?
1408.
With John Cusack?
That's the one. That's the one where he did where all the hidden messages are, right? No, 1408. The room.
He's trying to get into a room in a hotel.
Yes, I did.
And they're doing everything to keep him from getting in there.
Yeah, he was. They were telling him. Yeah, he was the writer. The suspense writer, and they were trying to say, hey, look, you don't want to be in this room. Do you want to get out? Do you want to get out? And all the crazy things happened to him, yeah. But, yeah, this is a little bit longer stay, though, because obviously they said at the Stanley, when you're up there in the winter in the